There is an estimate of 120,000 individuals with a stoma in the UK currently, with another 13,500 stoma surgeries taking place each year. It is surprising that most individuals don't know or have ever seen a stoma. I never understood what a stoma was until I had my surgery, never mind the social anxieties I faced with most people not knowing or having ever seen a stoma. I plan to hopefully change this by having discussions with other ostomy patients about life itself and the battles we face adjusting to life living with a stoma. I first got into contact with a young gent called Elliot, who is from Falmouth in Cornwall. I plan to speak to Elliot about the challenges he faces over the next few months and see how he's adjusting to life post-surgery.
It's awesome, insane.
Is that from Kilimanjaro?
Yeah, that's.
It looks like the moon, man.
That's just a simple GoPro night shot. It's insane.
That's actually a really sick shot. Mike, you'd really appreciate this shot.
Am
Am I coming into
Yeah, you are. Look at this.
Your GoPro, yeah?
Yeah.
It's
amazing,
Mars
yeah.
rover.
Yeah, man.
Not even been adjusted.
It's amazing.
Yet. You could put that through Lightroom or something.
Look at
and make it
that.
10 times better.
Yo.
I've always been more kind of physical driven than intellectual kind of things. Otherwise, yeah, it was travelling as well straight after that. I went to Nepal for 3 months and then India for a month, Vietnam for a month. So yeah, this time last year I was kind of jet setting all around the world. But how things change. I suffer from Crohn's and I underwent a resection of part of my ileum. It was supposed to be really simple, just cut out a small piece of my gut, put it back together, job done. But unfortunately, didn't quite get a plan. I woke up with a colostomy bag after my surgery. I mean, your immediate reaction is, oh, fuck. And you know it's there. I do have several concerns going into work. One of which is, we have this bag strapped to our stomachs, but my issue there is then how do you dispose of this bag? If you're trying to stay under the radar, you don't want to be carrying in a bag to the toilets every day and then carrying out another bag that naturally has the smell of kind of what's been coming out of your stoma. I'm sure most people wouldn't mind it, but as an employer, whether or not they'd be willing to put me in that situation freely, knowing that that could happen at any point. One of the first things you think about is just like, shit, how do I tell a partner, like, who's gonna want me with one of these? Most people just don't like things they don't understand or they don't know. So I imagine that initially, if they see it before you tell them, they're gonna be standoffish and be like, hang on a minute, what is that? And that's just because they're unaware and uneducated about what it is. But I think all you can do is just go for it. And I think with many things, dating and stuff, and how you tell partners, it's going to be trial and error. I wouldn't introduce myself as, hi, I'm Elliot, 27 years old with a stoma bag. I'm not sure I'd go for that approach.
After speaking with Elliot and hearing his concerns about his future, this brought up many memories of my initial struggles post-surgery. Having some time to reflect, I thought I'd then head to Truro to speak to my nurse specialist, who has given myself and many others advice about adapting to life with a stoma. I wonder if there's stairs anywhere?
Yeah, that looks quite nice.
Oh, there we go, stairs to oracles. It's unfortunate that we had to do kind of like another reshoot, but I thought for the purpose of the documentary and the book, I really thought it would be the best to do.
I'm Meg Tremaine and I'm a clinical nurse specialist in Cornwall for stoma care. And my role is supporting patients through their journey of having a stoma. A stoma is a piece of bowel that has been brought through onto the abdominal wall, and it's there to either divert away from a disease process or if a piece of bowel has been removed. Obviously, psychologically, there are massive adjustments that people have to make to having a stoma. I always say it doesn't matter how many times you've looked at a picture of a stoma, nothing quite prepares you for when you first see it on yourself. And that change in body image. Our youngest patient at the moment is 2 weeks old and our oldest patient is 103, so it really covers the whole age spectrum.
With these patients that you see, what are some of the main questions or problems that they bring you?
I think body image is a big one and how they adapt. People often wonder whether they're going to have to change the type of clothing they wear. Are they going to have to buy new clothes? People who are in a relationship worry about whether their partner's still going to find them attractive. One of the conversations that I have a lot with young people who are single is at what point do you tell a new prospective partner that you've got a stoma? I don't have the answer for that, but I will explore options with people and talk about different scenarios. How it affects people in work is a big fear. People often think that they're going to have to stop their job because of their stomas, and they worry about whether to tell their employer, but obviously I promote that they do. Some people have a real problem with swimming, I think is a great example, and I just try and get them to really picture how they're going to do that, where they're going to get changed, how they're going to feel afterwards, and go from there. That whole kind of how you start a new relationship, how you carry on with a relationship that you've been in, that's a massive hurdle. But it's everyday life that people have burdens with. Sometimes when stomas are mentioned, it just seems like it's the worst thing that you could ever imagine. But when you've lived with a chronic condition, then what you're living with already is really difficult. And patients who've lived with chronic conditions who end up having a stoma actually feel so much better in themselves, and they feel well. I'm a real big believer, you don't go through major surgery to eradicate all the things that make you happy. You go through major surgery to be able to do the things that make you happy.
So this is the travel certificate.
So this is a travel certificate, so it's in various different languages. And if you are stopped as you're going through customs or through the x-ray machine, you can hand this over.
Yeah.
You're well within your rights to ask for a closed room, so you don't have to show anything in front of everybody, and if you want a doctor or a medical practitioner, it's all in there. Airport staff didn't know about this kind of thing, so it might not be the first thing they think about, but this just jogs their memory that it will have happened.
After getting some positive reassurance from Meg herself about the future ahead of me, I decided to meet a lovely individual by the name of Caroline. Caroline works for a charity called IA, and from what I hear, she certainly breaks the norm of what is achievable with the stoma.
When they first took me on as a sponsor, one of their sponsored athletes, they asked me to go up to their offices to do a photo shoot, and I had a photo shoot day. And we've got like gold medalists and stuff. It was the best day ever.
Oh, I bet.
Talk about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome kicked in. What the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
But
someone's going to throw me out in a minute.
But yeah, it really was a case of this is imposter syndrome.
I'm Caroline Bramwell. I'm actually the PR manager for the Ileostomy and Internal Pouch Association. I became passionate about helping other people who are in the same position and showing them a life they could have, rather than the fear of having an ileostomy. The Ileostomy and Internal Pouch Association is actually a charity that was established back in 1956. We have over 300 qualified visitors who've all had ileostomy surgery, and they're there to talk to others and share knowledge, experience, listen, and because they've been through it, they understand. People with an ileostomy these days, or with a stoma, like to feel that they're normal. And I think that's the big thing, and that's what we're here for, both as individuals and as a charity, is to show people that, this is a normal way of life these days for many people, and nothing to be feared of or afraid of or embarrassed about.
For viewers that are hearing the terms such as colostomy, ileostomy, I think that can be quite jarring. In your words, what is the difference between an ileostomy and a colostomy?
Yes, there's a lot of this, because people automatically think of colostomy bags, but actually that's for people who've got colostomies. We have ileostomies. The difference is where it comes from your body. The ileostomy comes from the end of the small bowel, whereas people with a colostomy, it comes off the colon, and depending where it comes, depends on the type of output they get from that. And the output can be more like a normal stool, depending on where it comes from the colon. But without a colon, the output is very different. So there is a big difference in the two. My story was that I had my ileostomy surgery 10 years ago as a result of ulcerative colitis. So I had a complete panproctocolectomy, so I had everything removed. From somebody who had no sporting desire whatsoever, to the point that I used to hate cross-country running even at school. I found that after surgery you realise you've got a life and it's time to enjoy it, make the most of it. So I signed up for a charity ride to Paris and I cycled London to Paris. I've done 2 24-hour cycle events, and then 5 years ago I got in the pool because I wanted to learn to swim, to spend time with kids, the time that I'd lost when I was so ill with them when they were small. So for me, it was a case of my children were my inspiration to start swimming. I think people worry that will the bags stay stuck. I think that's probably the biggest fear, maybe. People are worried that the bags are going to come off. They don't come off. You know, you can find bags that work for you. I tried so many different products until I found the one that I felt worked the best in water, because I know my body, I know what I can do, and I know how to look after it now. And I think that's it. It's just learning how to live with your new body, as it were. But actually, it can be a positive new life with this body. It's a done sight better than the sick one that I had before.
It was great getting to speak to Caroline and hearing that there are charities like IA who are there for us who are battling to live with the stoma. Hearing Caroline speak about being able to swim and bike competitively really puts us into perspective of what is achievable with the stoma. I then decided to meet with a lovely lady from Wales called Hari. Hari and I got into contact through Instagram, and she is now making her way down by train to Falmouth to speak to us.
Mini tennis. That's going to be awesome.
My name's Hari, I'm 23 years old. I'm from just outside Wrexham in North Wales, and I have a stoma. I'm an occupational therapist, so I work in adult rehab services in physical health for the NHS. I've got a few different hobbies and interests. I come across as a girly girl a lot of the time. I love makeup, I like doing hair, I like fashion, but I like being out in the hills. I remember not being able to ride on a bus for how many years. You get to a point where you think, I'm that desperate, I'll do anything to stay alive. And I know that sounds quite dramatic, but you know, that's how it is. And you don't realise how bad it is until you look back on it. My life is 100% better after surgery. I couldn't do a lot of things before. I was miserable, I was in pain, I was cancelling things, I couldn't do all the activities I wanted to do, and I couldn't be as independent as I needed to be. Now I'm paying my way in life, I'm holding down a job, I'm enjoying my life, I've got a list of things I want to do, and I can go on a bus again. After all these years, it's given me my freedom back. One of my big fears was they're not going to understand. You know, we're going to get so far and then it's going to get too much for the other person. It's easy for me to understand someone else a lot of the time, but will they understand someone with this added thing crashing the party? I was afraid of it getting so far, and then maybe, you know, you get to that intimate stage and it all goes to pot and they run a mile, or you run a mile because your anxieties get too much. And I thought, you know what? That's my biggest fear. I don't want to ruin a relationship just because I'm too nervous, I'm too scared, or you know what, I've not given them the whole story. It's important to realise, yeah, every young person has these sexual anxieties and things, but people without stomas have them as well as people with stomas. And I think we need to understand as well that make it more open that things go wrong for people without stomas anyway. It's not just people with a stoma. Yeah, it's a bit different. I mean, the spontaneity's gone like that because you've got to think, right, empty my pouch before anything happens, you know, is it going to get in the way? Do I need to put a band over it? You know, do I want to wear a top or whatever? You've got all that to think about. But really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not as scary. It's not, you build it up in your mind, but really it doesn't really change much. Look forward to it. It's not the end of the world. You'll be in pain for a few weeks, you know, it'll be an inconvenience for a few months, possibly a few years. It might not be forever. You might get it reversed, you might not. But whatever happens, it's normally for the best. They wouldn't be suggesting it if it was, you know, to make your quality of life poorer. It'll be to make your quality of life so much better than it is now look forward and make a list of everything you want to achieve after your surgery, because no doubt you'll be able to do that.
Listening to Hari's testimonials about how she overcame her struggles gave me a sense of hope. And this gave me the motivation to push myself forward in overcoming the trials I face with living with a stoma. It's been 5 months since speaking to Elliot, so I decided to catch up with him and see how he has been doing since we last met.
Absolutely pathetic. How did I climb Snowdon and I'm struggling with this?
Yeah, man. I'm actually still so genuinely, like, not surprised, but yeah, that was not like a little stroll through Penryn, you know?
I have to say, I kind of intended on cheating.
Oh yeah?
Only because what I intended on doing was climbing up. That's because of the mental challenge.
Yeah.
For getting the train back down.
Oh, man.
No one really asks of how you get back down.
Yeah. But to be fair, I don't think anyone would have called you out.
No.
You know? For taking it down. I mean, the fact that she actually went up.
Yeah.
Has having stoma, you know, how did it really meet your expectations? Because it's kind of hard to know what you're going to be dealing with, you know, through your recovery and your journey.
I felt it was hindering me so much back then, whereas now I'm finding it isn't hindering me whatsoever. Dealing with it has been fine, it's been acting as it should be, and there's no pain, there's no discomfort. And from the day-to-day, I don't really recognise it as being there. They talk about stomas being life-changing, and I think it is massively life-changing, but it's not directly the stoma, it's the freedom that a stoma gives you. I think with the stoma it becomes second nature. After a month or two, you know, going to the toilet, that habit is kind of changed. You go to the toilet slightly differently, but that becomes second nature, and how you deal with changing of a bag, it becomes so simple and so quick.
I saw on your Instagram recently that you went to Wales and you essentially climbed Snowdon.
Yeah.
That was so soon, like post-surgery. I'm like genuinely amazed.
Definitely had no right to be doing it. I didn't expect to be able to climb, if I'm brutally honest. Yeah. You know, the morning of I was in quite severe pain, but somehow I got there and climbed it with no issues, you know. And yeah, you know, everyone was truly surprised, including myself.
We did have a conversation like 2-3 weeks back about you actually did go on a date. How did that go?
So on this particular date, I was unaware that I had gone on a date with a doctor and trainee surgeon who was far more intrigued and also could kind of read through the lines. There's something bigger going on than what you're telling me, which almost made things easier. Yeah, I was very fortunate, you know, for going from that position of going on dates with no intention. Suddenly this person in front of me was that actually maybe something could become of this, and something has become of this, which is ridiculously surprising. You know, we've been seeing each other now for nearly 5 months, I think.
So if you were to have any advice for someone who, or many viewers, you know, at home who essentially could have just had surgery or they have upcoming surgery, who they've got all these questions because they haven't experienced this yet, what kind of advice, knowing what you know today, what advice would you give them?
The overriding factor of having a stoma is just don't be scared of how it impacts your life. Don't be scared of how people are going to perceive you, and just go for it. The fear of someone possibly rejecting you, like in terms of a date, because of your stoma, that's not a reason not to go out and go on dates and meet someone. You know, you're allowed to still form relationships. There's still someone out there who will benefit from being my partner, I would like to think. Certainly when it comes to things like you mentioned, like yourself and surfing, with me with the gym and possibly going back to rugby, it's going to be a steep learning curve, but thankfully there are resources out there in terms of stomas, stoma bags, fixing kits, support that can make it work. It might take a couple of weeks, it might take a year for you to find out what works, but everything's possible. You just have to be persistent. I kind of live my life by kind of 3 Ps, which is kind of positivity, patience, and persistence. And I think that's crucial, certainly now. You know, I cannot go back to my normal life immediately. I have to be positive about the future.
After hearing how Elliot himself has adjusted to life living with a stoma, it left me feeling positive with what he has achieved in a short period of time. I have come to the conclusion that it is up to each of us with stomas to continue to pursue life and to make the most of it along the way. Being vulnerable is a challenge that we all face as humans, but this is what makes us stronger and brings people together. So my advice to those with stomas is to push yourself, You may not know what you are capable of, so live for today and not tomorrow.